Good day to you. I'm Graham Paddock. Many sectional title schemes have not yet held their annual general meeting for the 2019 year. Whilst most schemes complete their financial year at the end of February, the process of preparing for the AGM often takes more than the 4 months provided for in the prescribed rules. Arguably, the most important decisions taken at the AGM are the approval of the scheme's two budgets, that is for the administrative fund and the reserve fund, and the election of trustees. So here are a few pointers on these issues. First, every sectional title scheme is required to have a reserve fund. Despite the fact that this has been a legal requirement since 2016, late in the year, there are still some schemes that have not yet implemented a reserve fund budget. While owners may think that it's none of anyone else's business whether or not they collect money for future expenses and put it aside in a reserve fund, this is not just a technical non-compliance, similar to failing to hold your AGM in the prescribed period, which can simply be cured easily. This is a non-compliance that has serious negative effects on the value of the sectional properties in the scheme. We all have to sell our properties at some stage. If we cannot afford to set aside money for common property repairs and maintenance on an accrual basis, it would probably be best to sell now. Because when you do need to sell, when you die and your executor needs to realize your sectional property as part of liquidating and distributing your estate, the fact that the scheme does not have a reserve fund or has an inadequate fund will reduce the value of the unit, and it may also make it hard for any person who wants to purchase the property to get a mortgage bond to fund the purchase. Furthermore, if you can't afford levies, you really should worry that sooner or later you won't be able to make the payments you need, so sell while you're still in a position to be able to do so. Second point, assuming your scheme is lucky enough to have a number of owners who are prepared to volunteer their services as trustees, try and find something about their previous experience in the administration of schemes or similar bodies. It would of course be ideal to get a proper CV for each candidate trustee, but this type of detailed information is seldom available. But you can ask the candidates for information directly. You can also check their profiles on the internet. If you just look at LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, for most people it's quite easy to get a good idea of a person's previous achievements and job history. Thirdly, don't assume that having more trustees is necessarily better. 3 or 5 people might find it much easier to make decisions than 7 or 10. It's much more important that the trustees be the best qualified persons from a personality and experience perspective than that there be more of them. The fourth, because it is the trustees that must elect the chairperson, this issue cannot be decided at the AGM, but it should be discussed. The owners of the AGM should at least make sure that one or more of the successful candidates is willing to accept appointment as chairperson. Fifth, the decision as to how many trustees there will be should only be made after all owners are quite clear on how many valid prior nominations the body corporate has received. 6. If any of the candidate trustees requires payment, bear in mind that you cannot pay an owner to act as a trustee without a special resolution authorizing that payment. So in the case of a trustee that needs payment, the agenda of the meeting needs to have included notice of a proposed special resolution. And notice of the AGM needs to have been given at least 30 days before the meeting. In other words, you need to plan ahead if you're going to have any paid trustees, and this preparation needs to include a provision in the scheme's administrative fund budget covering the cost and the preparation of an employment contract for the trustee. 7. If the owners decide that there will be the same number of trustees as there are valid prior nominations, then those nominees are automatically elected without a vote. 8. If there are more valid prior nominations than the number of trustees positions that owners decide, then there must be a vote to decide who will be elected and who will not. 9. If the meeting decides on more trustees positions than there are valid prior nominations, then the meeting can call for additional nominations and acceptances of those nominations from the floor. 10, and last, remember that the voting for the number of trustee positions and for the election of trustees is by ordinary resolution. This means that votes are not counted in number, but only in value according to the PQs, or if there is one, a special rule that modifies the effect of the participation quotas for the purpose of voting values. I hope that these pointers help in your preparations for budgeting and electing trustees at your next AGM.